These are the 10 best JRPGs that are going to hook you from day one, but not always for the reasons you might expect. Some draw you in with the fast-paced opening, or some with irresistible mysteries that are going to create that curiosity loop to where you won't want to put the game down. But there are a few that have a secret weapon that's going to make it impossible for you to quit the game after day one. What is that secret weapon, you might ask? Well, let's get into it and dive into the first game. Xenoblade Chronicles 1 is undeniably one of the most captivating JRPGs that will hook you from the very start. Within the first few hours, you're thrown into a hectic conflict as Shulk's village is attacked by the Mechons. Now, this attack has a significant impact on the story because one of Shulk's closest friends is killed, and the wielder of the Monado is overwhelmed by its power and can't carry on fighting. This sets the stage for Shulk's revenge story and introduces you to the infamous Monado and the repercussions that it has on its wielder. Now, what truly sets Xenoblade Chronicles apart is how it weaves the Monado's unique abilities within the narrative. When Shulk wields the Monado, he's granted the ability to see into the future, showing you a glimpse of the critical events that will unfold later in the game. Now, you may think that revealing future story beats would lessen their emotional impact, but with Xenoblade Chronicles, it does the exact opposite. These visions create an irresistible tension, and it generates that curiosity loop of will Shulk defy fate and alter the future, or are the outcomes that we saw set in stone? The game does a really good job keeping you guessing by mixing up the results just enough to ensure that you never are able to predict what's going to happen next. Another really cool thing is that these glimpses into the future isn't just limited to the story, it's actually incorporated into the combat, where if there's a potential thing that can cause you to die, you're going to get a glimpse of it, and you're going to have a time-based opportunity to change the outcome based on what actions you execute next. I got this a lot in my playthrough, which shows you how bad I was at the game, but that is also weaving into the combat. Now, beyond its amazing story, the world of Xenoblade Chronicles is a breathtaking masterpiece. The game is set on the back of two colossal titans, the Bionis and the Mechonis, who were frozen mid-battle. As you journey through the game, you'll be traversing through different parts of the titan's body, from their legs to their arms and so on and so forth. But what makes this exploration so mesmerizing is the sheer scale and beauty of the world. No matter where you stand, you can gaze into the distance and see other parts of the Titan's body, whether that be the Mechonis or the Bionis, and it gives that constant sense of wow, like that wow, this is such a grand scale. And they're always on point with making sure that if you're on the legs, the view that you see with the rest of the Titans lines up with where it should be with like an anatomic scale, which I think is very impressive for a game, especially with when it came out. While the combat can be a bit repetitive, it borrows a lot from classical MMO mechanics, it still does offer a little bit of strategic depth. Each character is fully playable, and every one of them has a unique set of abilities that operates on cooldowns, requiring you to master their rotations for maximum effectiveness, similar to an MMO where you have your rotations that you do, and then on cooldown you continuously pop them. This does keep the combat a little bit engaging, even if it's just like on a rhythm activating skills, but it does get a little bit repetitive over time, but the story is going to be really what hooks you day one with Xenoblade. I recently finished my first playthrough of Xenoblade Chronicles, and it's easily one of my favorite JRPGs of all time, and since my first time playing it was as an adult, that's being said without the nostalgia factor that a lot of people factor into their favorite JRPGs of all time. Final Fantasy XVI wastes no time pulling you into its dark and mature narrative, setting the stage for a crazy story right from the start. A common thread that you're going to see amongst a lot of the games on this list is how they throw you headfirst into a conflict, and Final Fantasy XVI is no exception. The story is set in the world of Valistio, which is going to be a land divided by powerful nations that rely on a magical mother crystal to sustain their people, as a spreading blight threatens the survival of everyone within the realm. At the center of the turmoil are something called a dominant, and these are going to be individuals, which are going to be humans, that are bound and like essentially host to something called an icon, which you can think of as a classic Final Fantasy summon, and they serve both as a weapon and a symbol of political power. You'll play as Clive Rosfield, the eldest son of the Archduke of Rosaria, and though the power of the Phoenix was awakened in his younger brother Joshua, Clive devotes himself to protecting Joshua and being his sworn shield. Just after that pledge though, their world is thrown into chaos when Rosaria is attacked by the Iron Kingdom, and that starts a fierce battle starting within the first few hours of the game. Amid the chaos to protect his people, Joshua transforms into the Phoenix, only to be killed by this mysterious, never-before-seen icon Ifrit. This insanely tragic event catapults Clive into a journey of revenge, leading to a time skip as he hunts down who is the host of that icon that took his brother's life. Visually and musically, Final Fantasy XVI is a complete masterpiece. The game's art direction presents a blend of like magic and medieval aesthetic, creating a world that feels familiar to the franchise, but still fresh and not something that felt repetitive that we've seen before. There are several large-scale battles and they're going to be insanely detailed, and this clearly reflects the time and the budget that they poured into crafting these amazing cinematic moments. Combat fully embraces an action-oriented style, building on the foundation of the previous entry. It focuses on fast-paced attacks and the strategic use of abilities that you're going to gain throughout your journey. While some people have critiqued the combat for being too easy, those who love flashy combos and like high-impact moves are going to feel right at home. Ultimately though, it's going to be its combination of darker story, the stunning visuals, and Clive's relentless quest for vengeance that's going to grab your attention day one and keep you hooked until the very end. If you've made it to this point in the video, I really would appreciate it if you help me get this video to 100 likes and consider subscribing for more in-depth JRPG content like this. But now that you've done that, let's get into the next one. Despite what people might say, I think Final Fantasy XIII deserves a spot on this list of games that are going to hook you day one. I know I'm going to catch a lot of flack for this, but hey, this is my opinion. Make your list if you disagree. Now, what leaves a sour taste in people's mouth is they start by using terms that they barely explain, but once you read more about them in the in-game menu, the story can be extremely compelling. If you're interested but don't want to do all that, I also have a video where I break down everything and help decide if Final Fantasy XIII is worth playing in 2025. Now, the game opens up in a technology-advanced floating world of Cocoon, where it's ruled by a government that goes by Sanctum. Sanctum is ordered a purge of civilians who have come into contact with an artifact from Pulse, and Pulse is going to be the untamed world beneath them, and the people of Cocoon have been raised to fear Pulse, believing that any connection to it is dangerous. Now, during the events of this purge, Lightning, who's the main character, which is a former soldier, rebels against the government to save her sister Sarah, who's been branded as a Pulse Lassie. Now, being branded as a Pulse Lassie makes Sarah an enemy of Cocoon, and as the events unfold, Lightning and the rest of the party, who are all Cocoon natives, are also branded as Pulse Lassie, and now they're considered traitors. So they're gonna have to evade the government while uncovering their assigned focus, and a focus is essentially a mission that you've been assigned to, and if you succeed, you get to turn into a crystal and live forever, but if you fail, you turn into a mindless monster. And so the story becomes them seeing if they can escape that fate of the two different options. Gameplay is extremely linear for majority of the game, but it does keep you on track to continuously progress through the main story. This makes getting hooked day one an easy task if you're into just the story side of things, because the pacing is extremely rapid. Since there isn't much exploring to do, you're immediately gonna get into the meat potatoes and the bulk of the story. Combat is turn-based kind of, and it revolves around an ATB gauge that fills up over time, and that determines when you can attack. Now, you can manually select attack inputs to put in, but most people just play it on auto and focus on the paradigm system. Now, the paradigm system allows you to control one leader while assigning roles as commando, ravager, or medic via paradigms, so that way you don't have to micromanage every party system. Think of this as like you're giving them a role in an MMO, and the rest of the party is going to do that, while you can focus specifically on the leader and executing those abilities with whatever paradigm you have assigned. Now, as I mentioned earlier, combat is shifted to be an auto battle feature, and since it does that, it puts a lot of the strategy and focus of combat into paradigm shifting effectively. To me, the combat and the story were easily the standout features that kept me invested, and I really wish that they made more games using this paradigm system. Romancing Saga 2: Revenge of the Seven makes this list because of how unique it is compared to other JRPGs. Going into a JRPG, we as players have several preconceived notions of how we expect it to play, and Revenge of the Seven breaks all of those. I think this fresh take on a constantly redone formula is what will have you hooked. The game follows multiple generations of rulers as they combat the hostile 7 heroes. The game's narrative is non-linear, allowing you to influence the Empire's progression through your decisions, leading to a really dynamic storyline that evolves with each new emperor or empress. One of the game's most defining mechanics is how you play not just as a single hero, but as a succession of empires and empresses. And so when your current ruler dies in battle or resigns, you're gonna pick a successor from a pool of candidates, each with their own class and abilities. Now, this new ruler that you select is gonna inherit the skills, magic, and the techniques, which they call glimmers, of the predecessor, created in a sense of progression across generations. The game doesn't hold your hand either. It drops you in this vast world and lets you decide on your own how you want to expand your empire. You can tackle quests in almost any order, with some regions only unlocking based on choices you've made or passages of time. Now, we mentioned you're fighting the hostile 7 heroes, and they're not just sitting back waiting on you. They're active forces in the world, shaping the story depending on how you decide to engage with them. So that type of flexibility means that no 2 playthroughs will be exactly the same. Now, combat-wise, rather than using traditional systems, characters learn new abilities through the Glimmer system, and this is essentially like a aha, like Jinkies. This is like a Jinkies moment that happens mid-battle, and the more a character uses a particular weapon or fighting style, the higher chance that they will spontaneously learn a new technique during combat. So this is something, like I said, that just happens randomly throughout battle, but you can manipulate your chances of learning specific abilities. Now, there are just too many unique things that break the JRPG mold to talk about here, but if you give Romancing Saga 2 Revenge of the Seven a chance, I promise it's going to be a one-of-one experience, nothing like you've ever played before. Nier Automata is one of the most popular JRPGs on this list, and you're gonna see that that's for a good reason. Its short length helps you get into the meat of the story so much quicker, and if you're not enamored by the story day one, 2B will definitely get the job done. Nier Automata takes place on a post-apocalyptic future where Earth has been overrun by machines. The remnants of humanity now live on the moon, relying on human-made combat androids to fight the machine invasion. You'll play as the androids 2B, 9S, and A2 as they navigate a war-torn Earth. The game delves deep into exploring questions about conscience and the nature of identity, and what it means to be human when the humans in question are artificial beings. Combat is primarily fast-paced and action-based, blending fluid melee attacks with the ability to switch between 2 weapons at will. Some sections of the game even incorporate shooter mechanics and side-scrolling platformers, so it does kind of shake it up a bit as you play through the game. Nier Automata also features an open-world environment, letting you explore a beautifully designed post-apocalyptic world with abandoned cities, deserts, and forests. While the single playthrough takes about 15 hours, that is a little bit deceptive because the game encourages you to play through multiple times, and each time you play through the game, it's going to change and be from the perspective of a different character, which is going to drastically change the context of events that you experienced in your first playthrough. Each ending is going to build upon the last, changing that initial understanding of the story and the characters. So in order for you to really uncover the true ending, you're going to need to play through the game about 3 times, and I feel like this is a very unique concept because it adds the emphasis on replayability beyond simply playing through the game on a harder version for the same exact story, and you're really just playing for the difficulty spike. Now, for those who prefer not to replay games, I'm sure that there are going to be YouTube explanations for all of the alternate routes readily available. Tales of Vesperia is set in a world where Blastia, which is going to be a powerful artifact that provides energy and controls the flow of nature, play a central role in society. The story focuses on Yuri, who's a former Imperial soldier and has more of the personality more akin to like an anti-hero, but Yuri forms a guild called Brave Vesperia. As they explore the world, Brave Vesperia is going to be challenged by different factions who have different plans related to the abuse of Blastia resources. Narrative-wise though, what sets Tales of Vesperia apart from other JRPGs is its emphasis on personal growth and character development. Each character has a unique arc, and the skit interactions between party members make things feel more organic and heartfelt, so those bonds are genuinely meaningful by the time you reach the ending of the game. And for those of you that don't know, skits are a big signature thing to the Tales of franchise because a lot of emphasis is put into developing the characters, making them likable, and having that inter-party connection, and that is in addition to the story. So some games will just focus on the story and not really put a lot of emphasis into the characters, but that's what sets the Tales of franchise apart from the rest. Combat in Tales of Vesperia uses the real-time battle system known as the Linear Motion Battle System, or LMBS, and this battle system revolves around a combination of basic attacks, arts, which are going to be like special moves, and tactical positioning, making battles feel more fluid and dynamic. The system allows you to easily switch between characters during combat, and each party member has a different distinct fighting style, offering plenty of room for customization. In addition to that, there are also plenty of side activities to dive into, including mini games, monster hunting, and secret bosses. Fire Emblem Three Houses is an ideal starting point for anyone curious about diving into a tactical JRPG. It grabs your attention right away, offering a blend of both strategy and interesting storytelling. You step into a role of a newly appointed professor where you're given the option to choose between one of 3 different houses to lead. Each house features its own unique storyline and central characters, giving you a ton of reasons to replay the game and experience the perspective of the other 2 houses. One of the game's standout features is its persona-like structure, and so between key story events, you're free to explore the monastery to train your students, take on quests, or even build relationships with both students and faculty members. Time management is going to play a crucial role, as the game's calendar system is going to force you to plan carefully, so every activity that you choose has a direct impact on your effectiveness in battle, whether that be through stronger units, better skills, or just improved morale. At its core, Fire Emblem Three Houses retains that classical tactical JRPG combat that the Fire Emblem series is known for. Battles are going to unfold on a grid-based map where you can move your units across the terrain to engage enemies. Each unit is going to have a different set range of movements and can perform actions or special abilities like attacking, using items, or casting spells. What adds depth is the class system though. By training your units during your free time and your free days that we discussed earlier in the monastery, they can progress into advanced or special classes, giving you control over their growth and combat roles and choosing who and which unit you want to invest that time in. Combat also emphasizes inter-party teamwork, and so units who share a strong support system, outside of combat, can perform linked attacks, allowing adjacent allies to follow up with additional strikes. The battlefield is also going to be continuously changing, and it's going to add another layer of strategy to the gameplay, with terrain features like forests, mountains, and fortifications offering defensive bonuses and different ways of strategies on how you plan to take down your enemy, or maybe take advantage of the terrain to make yourself more successful. Chained Echoes is a new age stunning 2D JRPG that follows Glenn, a skilled pilot of a powerful mech, on a journey. The game's art style beautifully channels that spirit of that classic 16-bit JRPG, blending nostalgic visuals from back then with the unique charm that makes it feel more alive and more of a modern experience. And I feel like this is a treat for longtime JRPG fans who want that classical nostalgic kick. Now, a unique thing about Chained Echoes is its innovative overdrive mechanic, and so combat is going to revolve around carefully managing this system. You need to strike a balance between pushing your party into overdrive so that way you get maximum efficiency, while also trying to avoid overheating, which can leave you extremely vulnerable. It adds a strategic layer to battles, keeping every encounter engaging. Character progression also feels rewarding, allowing you to level up your party, unlock new abilities, and customize their loadouts with a variety of weapons, armors, and accessories to suit your preferred playstyle. The game also features a crafting system letting you forge gear and items for materials gathered throughout your adventure. I feel like this is going to be, especially if you're a veteran to the genre, it's going to deliver that nostalgic yet fresh experience that's going to make it hard for you to put down after the first day. Skies of Arcadia is a classic JRPG that has stood the test of time, and it's often regarded as one of the most memorable and charming JRPGs of its era. Skies of Arcadia takes place in the world of Arcadia, a realm where continents are going to float in the sky and airships sail through the clouds instead of oceans. You'll play as Vice, a young air pirate from the Blue Rogues, a faction dedicated to opposing the tyrannical Valian Empire. Alongside his childhood friend Aika and Fina, Vice sets off on a quest to prevent the Valuan Empire from collecting the powerful moon crystals capable of awakening destructive Gigas, which are going to be colossal war machines. Now, contrasting to the vague spoilerless description of the plot for Skies of Arcadia, the game feels refreshingly optimistic. Vice's determination to see the horizon and explore the unknown embodies a sense of wonder that few games are able to capture, and none are able to capture as well as Skies of Arcadia. Exploration is at the heart of the game. You can sail to uncharted territories, find landmarks which are going to be known as discoveries, and even build your own pirate base later on in the game. Skies of Arcadia also features turn-based combat split into two different systems. The first is going to be character battles, and the second is going to be ship battles. Character battles follow the classic JRPG formula with a few different tweaks. Characters are going to be able to change their weapons' elemental affinity on the fly, which is going to add a tactical depth since certain enemies are going to be weak to specific elements, and this is going to make you adapt on the fly. Now, ship battles on the other hand are one of the game's more iconic features. These turn-based battles are going to play similar to like a game of chess, where you're going to have to plan your actions across multiple turns, considering your ship's position, your available weaponry, and the enemy's behavior. You can fire cannons, launch torpedoes, or prepare defensive maneuvers, but you're going to have to do all of that while managing your ship's SP. Hopefully this game gets a port or a remake soon. I believe I saw that one of the names for Skies of Arcadia was trademarked or some type of variation of the name, because this is one of the harder games to play without using an emulator or having like an old school, I believe it's on GameCube and Dreamcast. Radiant Historia is another hidden gem in the JRPG world that needs to be ported to modern consoles or to PC soon. Lots of games attempt to do the time traveling thing and fail miserably, but Radiant Historia actually gets it right. Radiant Historia takes place on a war-torn continent where desertification is slowly consuming the land. The two dominant nations, Alastel and Grenorg, are stuck in an endless war for resources, while there's a much darker force that's looming in the background that's going to threaten the future of the world. You play as Stoke, a soldier of Alastel, who's chosen to wield the book called the White Chronicle. This book is going to allow him to travel through time and alter events to prevent the desertification of the continent. The story unfolds across two main timelines. The first is going to be standard history, where Stoke remains loyal to his homeland of Alastel. The second is going to be the alternate history, where Stoke defects and joins Grenorge's resistance. Your decision in each timeline is going to impact the other, requiring you to jump back and forth between the two to both unlock paths, solve puzzles, and push the narrative forward. So chances are if you're stuck in one timeline, you need to go to the other and progress. One thing I appreciate about it is that the time travel is not just a gimmick, it's deeply woven into the core set of the gameplay structure and story progression. Radiant Historia has the turn-based combat system where battles take place on a 3x3 grid. Enemies occupy squares on the grid, and their position affects both their attack range and how much damage they're going to take. And you're also able to knock enemies into different grid positions. So a strategy that you see a lot of people doing is stacking them onto the same square and then chaining attacks to hit multiple enemies at once. Radiant Historia is a JRPG that I think should get that HD pixel remaster treatment. A lot of people would fall in love with it, but for now it's trapped on the 3DS or an emulator. Similar to Skies of Arcadia, I hope this is one that gets ported to modern consoles. We spoke about Final Fantasy 13 earlier on in the video, so I have a video linked right here where I dive into if Final Fantasy 13 is worth playing in 2025 for you to check out. But I appreciate your time, and I'll catch you in the next one.